I was dining with my family on Christmas Eve when Let It Snow began playing, and I was shocked when I noticed that Frank Sinatra had made a mistake. But that couldn't be right. They would have re-recorded the song, wouldn't they? Could it be that no one in the studio had noticed? The mistake is in the third line.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. Since we've no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
Did you catch it? Frank Sinatra says, and since we've no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. What he should have said, and since we've got no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Or he should have said it if he spoke the variety of English we speak today. Today, if someone uses a pronoun contracted with the verb to have, and they don't use the word got, it sounds wrong. Check it out. I've the ball versus I've got the ball. I've to go versus I've got to go. Or you've to try this versus you've got to try this. Meanwhile, the uncontracted versions sound completely natural. I have the ball, I have to go, you have to try this. If phrases like I've the ball, I've to go, or you've to try this really sound natural to you, then you speak a variety of English different from the mainstream. But that's fine, I love you anyway. Lots of people had of course already noticed this, and the website Pain in the English, linked in the description, has a very good article about how to use it and where it is more common. But why does this happen? As I mentioned in my future English video, words like we're or I'm are starting to work less like contractions and more like new words, called Rickfords. These words indicate who does the action and in what verbal tense, but they don't indicate the verb itself, because they are no longer a pronoun plus a verb. They have fused to make something new. And since there is no longer a verb in that sentence, it has to be added in order for it to make sense. But for Frank Sinatra, this wasn't the case. In the 1950s, when Let It Snow was recorded, words like we've were truly a pronoun plus a verb. They probably wouldn't have understood what got meant in that context. Or they would have seen it as repetition, since the verb was clearly to have. But you would have never seen it as repetition, because for you, there is no verb in we've. But I already hear you typing that I'm reducing way too much from a single sentence, that this was a poetic liberty used to make the lyrics fit the metric of the song, and that this line doesn't prove that people used to speak this way. But this wasn't a poetic liberty, and people used to speak this way, and I can prove it. I present you Google's Ngram Viewer, hashtag not sponsored, which lets you analyze the contents of books since the 1500s up to 2008, and see with what frequency something was used. If you search any of the pronouns contracted with to have and then the word got, you'll find invariably the same result. This pattern was almost unheard of until sometime in the 1800s, but it was still pretty rare, considering that the frequency of phrases like I have is in the order of magnitude of 0.01. But then it starts being used more and more. Then for some reason around the 1950s it has a considerable dip in frequency, only to rise up in the 1960s, becoming one order of magnitude more common by the early 2000s. Which is a lot, trust me. And I suspect that if we had data for more recent years, we would see this pattern become even more frequent. It probably doesn't have yet the frequency of standard phrases like I'm, but consider that the use of I'm is also relatively recent, with a dip also during the 1950s. Man, people must have hated contractions back then. And then rises up to a frequency of 0.02, which is probably as frequent as it can become. So there you have it. English is changing, and weak forms will overtake contractions. Confusingly, they will probably be written the same way as before, but they will be used in different ways. But remember, that's just a theory, a linguistics theory I already had and for which I found more evidence.